Sass District Council. For those of you that don't know, I'm Mike Lawrence and I'm the chairman of this committee. The top table will announce themselves, starting with Bob on my right.
I'm Councillor Bob Cope, I'm Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee.
Carol Bloxham, Democratic Services.
Pardip Sharma, I'm the Planning Solicitor for the Council.
I'm Kelly Harris, I'm the Lead Planning Manager for the Council.
I'm Lucy Duffy, I'm the Assistant Team Manager for the South of the District, and this is Jackie Hannaford, Planning Support Officer.
Thank you for that. Agenda item 1 is the minutes of the last meeting. Have you all had opportunity to read the minutes? Can we agree they're a true record of that meeting? Thank you, members. Apologies. Have you got apologies, please, Carl?
I have received apologies from Councillor Mason, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Any from the floor?
Yeah, the Councillor Isabel Ford.
Declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare an interest? No, thank you for that. We're moving on quickly now to agenda item 4, which is the determination of the planning applications. And we're starting with 21/01255/FUL, which is the deferred matter from last month. And Lucy, if you could just summarise the application for us, please.
The application relates to a roughly rectangular site to the east of Red Lane at Gospel End, which totals around 0.25 hectares. The site is being used as a buildings maintenance contractor. The existing storage building was granted planning permission in 2018 and has been constructed on site. The application proposes to insert a mezzanine floor to the existing storage building to facilitate ancillary office space with windows in the side and rear elevation, as well as to retain a number of roof lights inserted without planning permission. An external staircase for fire escape would be erected on the rear of the building. There would be no new openings facing the residential properties to the east, except for the existing roof lights. The applicant provides that the offices would generally be used by 2 or 3 members of staff, and conditions have been added to ensure that the use remains ancillary and the hours of use are appropriate. Conditions are also added to prevent the amount of external lighting on site and to add some fast-growing plants to the approved boundary planting. The proposal to add a mezzanine floor would require little change to the fabric of the building and would make an efficient use of a rural building for economic purposes in accordance with local plan policies. It is not considered that the addition of offices or the retention to the site would cause any material harm on the character or appearance of the Greenbelt. The County Highways team have no concerns over the proposal and consider the amount of space for parking to be satisfactory. Subject to the imposition of a number of conditions to protect neighbouring amenity, it is recommended that permission is granted. There's an additional update to condition 7 on the late list, that the planting shall be maintained at a height agreed with the LPA.
Thank you, Lucy. We have 2 speakers. The first speaker is Chantal Buchanan, and you're the agent and you're speaking for the application. Thank you, Chantal. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Dear Chairman and fellow councillors, my name is Chantal Buchanan and I am a planning consultant here on behalf of the applicant UK National Limited. The proposal is for the modification of an existing building to create a mezzanine floor internally and includes for windows to be incorporated into existing elevations to allow for natural light to enter the building, and a fire escape will be added to allow health and safety to be maintained. UK National Limited are a nationwide company that specialise in providing high-quality property maintenance and facility management. As the company continued to grow despite the recent pandemic, there is an increased need for additional office space which would be created by the internal mezzanine level. The proposal will allow for additional office space for administrative tasks only and would not result in significant alterations to the exterior of the building or an increase in the footprint of the building. The number of office staff will be approximately 3 for the majority of the time, increasing to approximately 5 infrequently. This would result in insignificant traffic movements. The applicant is aware of the objections raised by neighbours. In connection to the potential pollution, office uses are compatible with residential uses, and this proposal will not result in excess noise or light disturbance. The mezzanine level will be located within the existing building only. Roof lights have been added already and can be visible on a site visit. The limited extent to which they impact the building can already be seen and judged effectively. We agree with the case officer's conclusions that they have no material harm on neighbouring amenity. This has been further confirmed by no objections being received from statutory consultees, including Environmental Health and Highways. The case officer has assessed the application in great detail, also raises no objections and is recommending approval of the application. Regarding the remaining buildings and landscaping, immediate action has taken place with a number of contractors to carry out the outstanding work to complete the site and alleviate the concerns raised. This has been done in cooperation and consistent communication with the local authority. It was previously delayed due to the pandemic. It is important to note the landscaping condition attached to the previous permission was formally discharged in January 2020, and the landscaping work was carried out in accordance with the approved scheme. Further information has been submitted to the Council following the previous Planning Committee, which clearly identifies the changes proposed to the building. We understand no objections have been received from any statutory consultees following receipt of this additional information. We also note proposed conditions 3, 4, 5 and 7, which the applicant accepts as part of this proposal. When the proposed application is considered on its own merits, we consider the proposal is not only policy compliant, but also includes no material considerations that would warrant refusal of the application. The proposal will allow for important parts of the business to take place on site and create jobs in South Staffordshire. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to attend Planning Committee and speaking to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. We now have Mr. David Boff, who's speaking against the application. But I do apologise, Mr. Bohr. I used to live next door to somebody that spelt their name the same way and they call themselves Boff. Anyway, you've got 3 minutes, sir.
Is that it? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee. This land has been dealt a poor hand in life, and it's a green belt amenity, and it's a dark area, and has operated over 50 years as stables and horse yards. It's never been a builder's yard until it was granted builder's yards use as a result of previous owners giving false declarations to the council and their lawyers, and unfortunately the stables were designated as now a builder's yard. Subsequent to that, the 8-metre high building you can see surrounded by a concrete wall was erected. Since then, the occupiers and the applicant has had repeatedly failures to comply with the conditions relating to that application, and indeed inserted skylights into the building which were not in the original planning consent. This is very relevant to this application. The 32 large skylights in the barn added without consent, and I understand the council is recommending these to be kept retrospectively. We ask them to reconsider. On behalf of the 38 objectors, all we ask now is, following our hard work with the planning department to get the screening, which was originally planned, properly planted after 3 years of failure. We now ask just that the skylights, which on the east side, which are causing the most distress to objectors, be removed. They do in fact produce a large amount of light, and because the barn and now the offices are used on a 24-hour, 24/7 operation of road salt distribution, it's obviously mainly a winter and a 24/7 operation. These skylights emit beams of light into the sky, which we want removed. They were never in the original planning consent. We think it's fair, since these were originally stables and is greenbelt dark location, that they are in fact declined on this side of the property. I heard the comments from the previous speaker about the number of people. There is a car parking plan in the application for 19 vehicles. One can only ask, why do we need a parking space for 19 vehicles when it's going to be occupied by just 3 to 5 staff? So that said, that's all I want to add. I plead with you to not to retrospectively approve the skylights on the east side. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The local member, Councillor Lees, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do wish to speak on this matter. The application involved an existing 18 by 15.5 storage shed building to be modified by building mezzanine floor internally to allow for offices to the proposed first floor. The application proposes to insert a mezzanine floor to the existing storage building to create office space. An external staircase or fire escape would be erected on the rear of the building, with new external openings created in the side and rear elevations. This would be no new openings facing the residential properties to the east, except for the existing roof lights, and the application has been asked to amend the submitted plans to show the inserted roof lights, which they have now done. Numerous concerns have been raised over the condition of the existing site, however, none of which seems to have come from South Staffordshire District Council residents. They have all come from Dudley residents, including their MP. But after visiting the site with the Corporate Director of the Infrastructure and Business Growth, I could see the points they raise have all been addressed in the report. Furthermore, there has been no objection from the Highways team or Environmental Health, and the insertion of offices at mezzanine level raises no conflict with the local plan policy EP2, EQ4 and EQ12, which affect the visual amenity of the green belt. It is acknowledged that there is still some work to be done on the site to conform to Planning Permission 18000193/4 to remove the existing buildings and the boundary planting of the trees if they fail to grow. But not enough to warrant refusal of the application to ensure that the landscaping is as effective as possible. A new condition has been added to this consent, which includes the addition of some fast-growing plants, as advised by the Council's horticulturalist. In concluding, the proposal would support the business current operating from the site is for the economic purposes and accords with local plan policies GB1, CP7 and CP9. It is not considered that the addition of offices to the site would cause any material harm to the character appearance of the green belt. So, with conditions added to secure a more effective landscape scheme, I would ask you to support the recommendation and to support the application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lees. Over to members. Does any member wish to speak, please? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed at 555 that the roof lights have been inserted to allow daylight to enter, and the requirements for the lights to be switched off during the evening and when the offices are not in use is already in the conditions. So I do not see a reason to refuse this application. I'm assuming that the 19 parking places are partly because heavy vehicles are going in and out of here to collect the salt. Therefore, you cannot expect them to turn in a small car park. I'm assuming that's to facilitate the turning of commercial vehicles.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Any other member wish to speak? There was a site visit last month, so I'll just make a few observations about what I saw when I was there. We looked at the location from the rear garden of one of the closer neighbours to see the impact. The building and the development is 150 metres away from memory. Any light being emitted from that building would not be shining directly into the houses that back onto the to the development. Although it's going to have some impact on light pollution, particularly dark nights if you're interested in the sky and the stars, etc., which we all are. But there is a condition there that says the lights will be switched off when the office closes, which is at 5:30 at the latest. So that dark sky will be available for the rest of the night. I can't see any problems with that. The planting of screening is always a problem. Sometimes they grow, sometimes they don't. We will ensure that they grow on this occasion, and the concrete boards that are visible there will disappear in a couple of years, I hope. I came away thinking, really, I can't find any reason to object to this planning applications, although I have some sympathy with the neighbours. Therefore, I'm going to recommend that we approve it as well. Any other member wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I mean, I did attend that site visit, and one could see where the concerns that the neighbours made. Of course, the problem with the topography there is it's very high up, so they're looking down onto the actual building, as we can see in the photograph here. But I think that the conditions that we've put in will ameliorate their concerns, and I'm going to support the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also attended the site visit, and again, whilst I understand the residents' concerns, most of these actually relate to non-observance of previous conditions, which I'm afraid, as I understand it, we can't actually take into consideration in determining this. So, yes, I understand their concerns, but again, I really don't see that we have any available reasons to refuse it, so I will support the application.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just to offer my sincere apologies for my late arrival, and as I haven't heard all the debate, I will not be voting on this one.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. The recommendation is that we approve the application subject to conditions on pages 15 and 16, which are quite extensive. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Chair, with one person abstaining.
Thank you. Anybody? No, sorry. We're unanimous, aren't we? The one that can't vote, so everybody's voted. Thank you, members. We'll then move on to the next planning application, which is 22/00042/FUL, and it's Bailiff's House, Lawnswood Road, Lawnswood. Lucy, if you could just summarise for us, please. Thank you.
This application relates to a two-storey detached property located on the fringes of Lawnswood Village within the West Midlands Greenbelt. Planning permission was granted in 2021 for a replacement dwelling and detached garage. This permission has been implemented and the existing dwelling has been demolished. This application seeks approval for a new L-shaped ancillary building on the western boundary and the creation of a new access. No alterations are proposed to the size or design of the replacement dwelling previously approved or to the detached garage. The proposed L-shaped outbuilding could be erected under permitted development rights once the replacement building is built and occupied, as the replacement dwelling retains its permitted development rights for Class E outbuildings. There would be no planning harm caused in allowing the proposal to be built together, and no greater harm would be caused to the openness of the Greenbelt or neighbouring amenity. The revised access and entrance gates would not have an undue impact on the character of the area, and there are no concerns arising in respect of ecology, highways or residential amenity. Approval subject to a number of conditions is therefore recommended. And I would refer you to the update list where we have some late County Highways comments, and we've had to revise the approved plans in condition 2. Condition 4 was going to be a pre-commencement condition, but that one's been changed. And there was also a visibility splay condition that was altered due to County Highways comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor Hinsley, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say, I approve this plan. It's fine. And just to make sure that the 106 agreement is adhered to. Thank you.
Chair, there's no 106 agreement with this application. I just wanted to clarify that you mentioned that the section 106 agreement is adhered to, but this application carries...
You're comfortable with that then? You understand it? Okay, thank you. Any other member wish to speak, please? No. In that case, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. All those in favour, please show. Unanimous. Thank you very much. That comes to the end of the planning applications. Before we move into the next agenda item, which is the report from the planning manager, I just want to make a few observations. This is the last meeting of this planning committee before we go into our final year. We've got an AGM, council AGM in May the 10th, I think it is, you said. And we will have a new committee starting May the 17th. That committee will be slightly smaller than the 21 that we have currently. It's been reduced down to 18, and that's to fall in line with the boundary commission changes that are reducing the number of councillors that will become effective following our new elections in 2023. That means that we are losing some members. Now, the members that we are losing know who they are. They are Conservative members in the main, and they've volunteered. And I want to thank them all for their service over many years on the planning committee. And I also want to welcome 3 new members. They don't know who they are, and when they come, I shall again, welcome them to the new committee. But the point I'm making is that we are getting smaller. And at the moment with 21, we struggle at site visits and sometimes at meetings to get a lot of people present. So I'm really asking you in the next year, and certainly from 2023, if you're still members of this committee, to dedicate yourselves to coming to the site meetings and attending committees and fully participating in them, please. Thank you all very much. And thank those that are standing down for your time. I want to say something, Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say on behalf of members how well you've conducted our meetings over the period of time that you have been chairman, along with your vice chairman. It's well appreciated by us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. Okay.
Could I?
Yes, Roger.
Could I just make the point, I think you've said most of it, but it'll be a politically balanced new committee that all of the leaders of the other groups have agreed to. So it will be announced, obviously we'll put it to the meeting. If it's approved, we'll announce the new committee on the 10th of May.
Okay. Thank you all. Kelly, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So just turning to my report for April's Planning Committee, and it covers the usual items around training, changes in national policy, appeal decisions, and then performance for both planning enforcement and for development management. So we're looking at future training sessions. Obviously, there hasn't been one this evening just due to availability, but we're looking at future ones from May onwards. Again, sort of highlighting those areas around tree applications, what planning enforcement is, and certainly around permitted development rights, which has been requested recently. So we'll get those dates to you once they've been agreed. Turning now to national policy and whether there's any changes that have been in place. And whilst there isn't any changes in national policy, there has been guidance now issued on first homes, which our Senior Housing Strategy Officer has circulated to members to explain with worked examples as to how that will work. So that's now come into effect, and we wait with interest to see how that will actually be implemented, because there's a lot to it, and we'll have our first live example soon, I'm sure. Turning now to planning appeal decisions, there have been 4 appeal decisions since the last report. The first one was at Cookley Lane Stables in Kinver, and it was against the refusal to construct a storage building for hay and bedding and machinery. The appeal was dismissed because the inspector concluded, in the same way as the officer report did, that the development wouldn't preserve the openness of the greenbelt and it did constitute inappropriate development. The second application relates to the refusal for a single detached dwelling at Beach Farm on Feasel Road in Treasel. The appeal was allowed. It's an interesting read for those that haven't had a chance to read the full report, because the inspector concluded that the appeal was within a village and constituted a gap between 2 houses, and therefore it was classed as infill within a village. The inspector with interest noted the welcome village sign as being a contributing factor in whether that was within a village, and that there was sort of further houses along. So in light of that, the interpretation from the inspector was that the appeal site was in the village and therefore it was acceptable. The third appeal, interestingly by the same inspector as number 2, was a refusal for retrospective permission for a single detached dwelling within the curtilage of a garden and detached garage at Smestow, near Womben. The appeal was dismissed this time because the inspector concluded the appeal site was not within the village and in a location that was physically and not functionally related to Womben, but recognised there was a footpath that linked the area to Womben. The inspector also concluded the site was previously built free from built form, and that the dwelling had actually resulted in a visual and spatial reduction in the openness of the greenbelt. I can say, members, it's worth reading both of them together just to have a read of how the planning balance has been done separately. Councillor Ann, I'll pick up your question at the end of my report, if that's okay. The fourth appeal relates to a refusal for a single-storey rear orangery in Whitehall Farm Barns in Himley. The appeal was dismissed because the scale and appearance of the extension was considered to cause harm to the converted agricultural building, and it wasn't in accordance with our development plan for the impact on local character. Turning now then to planning performance, planning enforcement, there's no update on performance since the last report, so we're currently over the 80% target at 83.5. Myself and Catherine and Annette are currently looking through historic enforcement cases that we've had open for some time and looking at how things, particularly around permitted development, has changed. So we're looking at historic cases and closing cases down or moving them forward for investigation. So that will affect performance because obviously some of those are over the 12 weeks. So if we are closing those, you may see a slight dip in incoming reports just to reflect some of those historic, long-standing cases being shut down. Finally, then turning to development management, you can see that the statistics have been updated since my last report, which is done by DLUC, and you'll see that actual performance has improved, and for speed of decision making for major applications we have to be above 60% and we're now at 93.1, and for all other applications above 70 and we're at 85.2. In terms of quality of decisions and appeals and overturns, majors need to be below 10% and we're at 1.9%, and other applications again need to be below 10 and we're currently at 0.8%. So that concludes my report for this evening, Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, please, about the welcome notices for villages. I have never noted this before in any planning application, and since these decisions are normally made by parish councils about citing, funding these things, I think it's very important that's communicated. This allows an expansion of the village envelope, which we haven't accounted for in the past, and we may need to think very seriously about in the future. Having been involved in funding and deciding the design and the citing of a welcome notices for our village, they're normally speaking considerably in advance of the village itself in order to alert people to reduce their speed, and that has been their principal function in the past. Can I have a comment about that, please?
Yeah, I raise it because it is quite peculiar. A colleague of mine would use the phrase it's a red bead. I don't think we want to put too much emphasis on the location because you're quite rightly saying that they're there for a reason to slow down traffic. It's unusual that it's in the report, but I don't think it should then have a material impact on decision making in our communities as to where the village, welcome to Treasil, welcome to Bobbington, welcome to Kinver. It shouldn't be part of that. It should be where it's appropriate to do so on the road network. I've referenced it because it is quite unusual, but I don't think we should see it as setting a precedence of sorts that we need to move all of our village signs to be right in the centre. It was one of a number of considerations of that inspector in the planning balance, along with the ribbon of development that the inspector felt was there that kind of created a sense of a village, and together with the welcome sign, they felt that was appropriate in that location. It's just slight, in my personal view, it is slightly at odds with the one at Smestow, and it's the same inspector that's carried out the planning balance exercise on both. I think it shows that planning balance judgments are a judgment, and that inspector's come to its own conclusion. Each case in its merits. I don't suggest we start moving all our welcome signs. I think that would be an overreaction to a situation.
Any other member? Yes, Councillor Cox.
Just a thing. I always look at the figures from the government, and I noticed that the figures that I looked at on my computer, the figures were still the old ones, but you're looking more recent ones for the speed and quality. I looked again this morning, and the old figures are the old figures. Is there any reason that you're a different figures? Or?
I'm not sure which figures you're referring to, because the ones that are in this report are taken from the Department for Levelling Up Homes and Communities, where they look over a longer period. Are you referring to our council scorecard and the differences?
I'm looking at the government figures of
Just on, in terms of the government statistics, they have on, say, on one indicator 151A, they have 3 separate spreadsheets for 3 different periods. So I've gone with the most up-to-date ones. I'm happy to have a conversation offline if that would help, just to kind of show you which ones we use, but that is the most up-to-date statistic from the department.
Yes, well, as I say, if you want to discuss it with Kelly outside the room, and we'll find out why the figures are to variation. Councillor Lockley used to speak.
Thank you, Chair. It's on the same subject, actually, the speed and quality. On the speed, so data up to December 2021, which is, what, 4 months ago? But the quality is up to September 2020. I find that a little bit difficult to understand. If you've got figures for the speed up to December 21, how come we haven't got the figures for quality up to the same date? It seems a little bit strange to me. I don't know. All right, it's the government. Thank you.
I can pick that up. The quality is done for appeals, and the speed is done for planning applications, and they take the appeals over a 2-year period.
Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question, really it's clarification I'm seeking. We get the figures for enforcement sent out now, and they're very helpful indeed. And they go out on several different websites, I noticed, and I thought they were confidential because some are in process of being processed through. Is that correct? They are confidential? Oh, sorry.
The lists that are sent out on a monthly basis are confidential because they include active live investigations and they are alleged breaches. So if they are being put onto websites, if you could let me know, because they need to be taken down, because quite a lot of them may not actually be found to have breached planning. So it's an investigation that's ongoing, so it's confidential.
Okay, Chairman, that's the very point, because they also go out to the clerk's website, all the parish clerks, don't they? The clerks, parish clerks, on parish council meetings are open to the public. So should this information, if it's discussed in parish council, be confidential?
Yeah, it shouldn't, the overall how many there are, if there's any personal data, addresses, or the nature of live investigations, no, that's not a public meeting discussion. It should just be in our area. There are 17 open cases which are being actively investigated. You know, and it could be a general conversation, but not Mr. Smith of 14 Smith Road is being investigated for his home office. That detail shouldn't be in a public meeting, no, because it's an ongoing investigation.
Well, because they're identified in localities, aren't they? And it's easy for members of the parish council to more or less guess where it is. I just want to make sure, is this information to stay in confidential at parish level or not?
It's been answered, but Kelly just reinforced the message.
Chair, I was actually going to say that we'll take your query away because at the end of the day, as far as enforcement is concerned, it does become public. You know, once we've actually issued the enforcement notice, it's registered as a local land charge, and it is very much public then. But prior to the issue of enforcement notice, and including, you know, the complaints themselves, we're carrying out an investigation. So, you know, it is not normal and common for us to then, you know, tell the public exactly what is going on until we have, you know, an affirmative decision. So the best thing in the circumstances, I suggest, is we talk to our enforcement officer and we look at exactly what is actually online and review and revert.
Thank you for that answer. The reason I asked it is because we've had one or two controversial ones in my area, and we get questioned at parish council level what is happening, and I want to be able to say what we can and can't say in public.
Thank you for raising that, Mike. Any other member wish to say anything? Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering whether we need a little bit more information about this approach now from the Department of Levelling Up and Housing over designate because of tardiness of applications going through, even major. Sorry. It's in the report about the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, and they're talking about the time it takes to get majors or minors through. And if we don't sort of conform, they can then designate to another person. So we lose control. I just think we need to be aware as members of our role in this, because it is us that can actually slow things down if we're not careful. I think we need to be aware of this new system coming in.
Yeah, the being designated for poor performance is one that's been around for some time, and it's why we always have to keep an eye on our statistics. And as I say, I'm pleased to say that our performance it was already very good, and it's improved even further in the last round of results that have come out. So we will be I think it'll probably be before the next planning committee. We're going to bring you, because I'm sure most of you are aware that Sue Frith, our development management manager, is retiring. She's been working a lot on service improvements and service reviews about how we manage our risks and how things that we've taken steps. So we're going to do a bit of a presentation before next planning committee as the training, just to show you what we've done over the last year or so in improving performance, but also making sure we manage our risks. One of the big ones has been around obviously filling vacancies, adding to our workforce. You know, we've got a great team now, and that's actually, we're not relying on sort of agency staff and consultancy like we used to be, and that's managing our risks in that sense. So it's all part of a bigger picture. But yes, you're absolutely right. But you know that we have to make sure we're always managing our performance and being aware of it. And that's why we report back to it. But there's no change in the designation that's been around for some time, and it's particularly on appeal decisions, on majors, it's one that we have to keep a really close eye, because we just don't get that many of them, so a couple can always make an impact.
Just come back, I think, as you're rightly say, you know, it's been around, but it looks as if they're going to enforce it more to me.
Well, we shall continue to have training sessions. I've no doubt that that will be on the agenda at some stage in the future to remind us all of our responsibilities. If anybody else has got anything, no, in that case, then I'll draw the meeting to a close and thank you all for your participation and wish you all a safe journey home. Thank you.